Hello. Today we are going to work on finally getting all of Brian into the ROM. What do I mean by this? When we look at the mesh for Brian, let me import him right now. When we look at the mesh for Brian, as you can see, he has a cape, he has a staff, and he has his hair tuft. Those types of things we'd want to move independently. If Brian bends over, we don't want the cape to move. So we need to add bones to our rig. The problem is that if you look at the original Smash character roster, we have Mario, Pikachu, Captain Falcon, Link, Samus, Ness, Luigi, Jigglypuff, and so forth. None of them have capes, and none of them have hair tufts. That means we need a custom rig for Brian. As you can see here, I have broken Brian out into his individual parts again, and I've imported part of the Mario rig. Luckily for us, we don't really need any of Mario's textures, so we can get rid of them. And that leaves us with the rig itself. Now, looking at the placement, we want to make sure that our rig matches what we want. Brian has different proportions compared to Mario. As you can see here, the arms don't match, and the legs barely match. So we need to adjust that. Easily enough, you just go in, pick a root joint, and then just move it. In this case, just slide them up, for example. And if we go down to the wrist, we'll do the elbow, and then the wrist. And we will want to make sure to do this for every single bone on the rig. When it comes to adding what we want, in Blender, it's pretty simple. We just want to sit there and insert. But considering I'm going to be using Maya for animation, I'm going to use it to set up the bones as well. Process is the same. What we're going to want to do is just insert the bone. Now in Maya, you have to go up here to Rigging, Skeleton, and we're going to Insert Joints. And then I'm going to click on for example, we're dealing with the cape. That is the arm. This is the body. We're going to have to get it to insert. Right. There we go. So now, once you've added your joint, you need to put it in the right place. So I'm going to take this joint here. I'm going to move it, since this is for his cape, up here at the top. I'm going to make sure that it is in the right position. Put it right there. And move it back. Perfect. So that looks to be where we're going to want his cape joint. And since the cape is in two parts, because we want it to flap, we're going to want to insert another one. There we go. So now we have our joints. Now, I'm going to adjust some of them as well. I wanted to add the head joint here real quick because that one is going to be a joint we really need to question. Get it in place. Put here at the base of the head. Looks about right. It's too far forward. There we go. Now we've added this new joint to the head. One thing we have to do is we have to make sure that its attributes are correct. If we go in here, you'll notice transform attributes and joint attributes. These joint attributes define the upright position of the head. These need to be set to 0. Whenever you're adding a joint, you always want to make sure that they're set to 0. And whatever joint you're adding has them at 0. And whatever joint you added to is set them to 0. Notice that the body rig joint stayed at 0, but when I added it to the head, I had to modify it. That's important because once you start importing animations, Mario's head sort of kinks to the side, and that can be problematic. So you want to make sure that you adjust it. You probably have to tweak animations as you go forward, but we'll get there when we get there. Now that we've adjusted all that, let's make sure that our bone is still in the correct position. It has moved slightly. There we go. Let's get our cape joint in the right position. Put here in the middle. There we go. We're going to want to do other things as well. For example, Brian has a staff here. Link has a sword, but since we're not modifying Link's rig, we're modifying Mario's rig, we need to add a staff. Now, let's look at these bones. This is the arm socket, this is the upper mesh, the lower mesh, and the hand. Hand looks a little off. There we go. This is the item joint. You know, in Smash, people can grab items like swords and bats. That's where this is. I can reuse this for the staff. We'll put the staff there. Thing is that if Brian picks up a sword, that staff is going to disappear. And the question is, do we want that? Well, I think considering in Quest 64 he's always holding the staff, I don't think he needs to be swinging a sword or having it disappear. So with that in mind, I want to add a withheld or item joint to the other one. So let's do that. All right, here is our new joint. Let's move it into position. Right here. And like always, put it in the right spot. Given how people hold swords, they're in the middle of the hand. We'll put it right there. Remember, we want to go in and make sure that these are all set to 0. 0, 0, 0. And we'll come in here. 0, 0, 0. Double check the two. Perfect. All right, let's get this back in the right position. Here and here. All right. If you've noticed now, we've gone from Mario's rig to adding 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 joints. Now, if I want to add more joints, we just continue this process. Say we want to have a special magic joint attached. Well, I can just add it onto this. The whole structure is a hierarchy. That is the important part. I might add another joint here or there. We'll see. But what we're going to want to do now is rename the bones. In Blender, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's pretty simple. Go in, increment by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But for here, we're using FBXAS0 number. We have to mimic that order. There's a specific name for these bones, given that Maya in the FBX is read a little differently than Blender with FBX. So what I'm going to do is start renaming these joints. It's a hierarchy. It's an order. You start from the top and you go to the bottom. So this new item joint I added becomes 5, 5. That means this becomes 5, 6. This becomes 5, 7. Now, notice here, 5, 7 jumps to 490. That's expected. So when we modify this one, it will become 490. And then we're going to repeat this process down the line, all the way until the end. We need to remember this. We'll actually make a spreadsheet for it. Rename everything. So give me a second, and I'm going to tweak the model a little bit, and we'll come back. I've gone in and I've fixed up the rig. I also added a few other bones. As you can see here, I added bone 056, 499, and I ended on 510. This here is a withheld part. It's temporarily added to the rig. We'll learn more about it later. For now, we have a complete rig for Brian. Now that we have fixed the rig, we have to adjust the rooms. If you remember, when we were just modifying the Mario rig, the head went in the same spot. On the Mario rig, the head was in part 8. But given we've added some joints and some withheld parts, the head is now in part A. That means that we have to make sure that the rooms match the bones. So when we come in here and we make adjustments, for example, I have my head here. I've already tweaked it, but it has to be part A. This matches the bone. So if we do a reference, the head bone is 490 here. If we look here, 490 is part A. So we need to make sure that when we update it, the head is now attached to Blender's bone 10 in room A, or with Maya's bone FBXASC 0490. So very easily, we just have to go in, find our part, we just find the bone, and in this case, it would be 493, and in Maya, we just have to go to Skin and Bind. Very simple. In Blender, you want to attach it as we've discussed before. But I do want to stress, once the new structure is created, if we want to import it correctly, we have to make sure that the room numbers match the correct bones. Given we are importing over Mario, there's a lot that has to happen for this rig to actually work in the ROM. But before we do that, what we're going to want to do is File, and we're going to want to export. I very often just highlight what I want, File, Export Selection, and save it. Very simple. So things to remember while dealing with your rig, the rooms have to match the bone. In fact, let's take a look at that graph. Here we have a breakdown of Mario's rig. As you can see, he has roughly 24 bones. In hex, that means the largest part he currently has is part 18, which means that the joint name itself would have been 504. If we look at the different parts of the rig, we can very easily see a very common pattern. There's the main base, often followed by hips and chest. Then you break it out into the arm, which is the socket, upper, lower hand. You have your neck and your head. And you have another socket, upper, lower hand. There's an item joint somewhere. Doesn't exactly have to be on the hand. We can move it anywhere we want. Then you will have the right leg down to the foot and the left leg down to the foot, and then always ending with the large item joint. For Brian, we added up to 30 bones, which means we added about 6, which means our final part is 1E or 510. As you can see here, we have the same basic structure, but I added in a potential withheld magic part. I moved the item joint to the other hand. I added in a hair mesh for the little pot on top. His cape, another withheld part, in case we want to have magic popping up here and there in his moveset. If we put the two structures side by side, you can clearly see the increased amount of bones. Why am I bringing this up? Because we're going to start remapping everything in Mario's file so that it will actually work. Here is the editor. What we're going to want to do now is start importing the character and modifying the rig. So click on Tools and go to Animation Editor. Inside Animation Editor, we're going to need to pick our ROM. As usual, let's just find one. I always go with the base ROM because if you keep importing over the same ROM over and over and over again, it actually makes the character file larger. And that's a problem because when we import it into Remix, there's limited space, meaning that the bigger the file, the less you can actually get into Remix. So always start with the base ROM. We're going to make a base ROM too, but that's a different subject. Once we're in here, as you can see, we have our Mario. First things first, we've exported in Maya our character model. We need to also export the new rig on its own. So just highlight top joint, file, export selection. It will export the rig. First, we want to import a different rig. So click Import Different Rig, and then navigate to wherever your rig is. In my case, it would be right. No, that's a skeleton. Yeah, right here, skeleton. This one right here, rig. Import that. Once it's imported, you can see Mario's become a jumbled mess. That is because, if you remember what we looked at inside of our file, just scroll up. Brian's rig is about 5 to 6 bones larger than Mario's rig. We added in joints to his hand, being these moving the item joint in the potential hand part. We added a joint to his hair. We added his cape. We added another magic joint to the other hand. We've done a lot of adjustments and changes. That means, of course, the old mesh will not look like what it needs for the new mesh. We're not importing the character just yet. Importing the character increases the file size immensely. We want to make a lot of adjustments before that. First, we need to fix the animations. Let's go over here to Edit Attributes. When you click Edit Attributes, you'll see this section pop up. This right here controls a lot about the character, how fast they walk, how high they jump, different modifiers, their gravity. This is all good for gameplay modifications, but we're not worrying about that. We're looking at skipped parts bit flags and withheld bit flags. These are written in hex, and we're going to need to convert it into binary. So what does that mean? If we look at this and break it down, which I have done already, nice and handy. If we look at this and break it down, this hexadecimal will convert into this binary number. If we break this down to Mario's structure, we can sort of see how it falls into place. Let's go 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Look at that. This right here ends up being the socket joint, or grab joint as some call it. Let's look at the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then another one. Look at that. Now it's the other socket joint. As you see, these ones are corresponding to specific bones in the rig. We have a socket for the arms, we have a socket for the legs, and we have a socket for the ankles. So while we're modifying the rig, this skipped parts bit flag has to correlate. So let's go down to our Brian rig. Given what we have, written it all out, look at that. Brian's socket for this arm, part 3, well, that is the same as Mario. But if we come down here and look, the next one is on part E. On Mario, it was on part 9. So we go in and remap it as such, which would give us this binary. And then when we're done, convert it in, go into the editor, and just replace it. Boom. Easy as done. Then we want to update the withheld bit flags. This is a multi-step process. Same exact situation. We're going to take this withheld part, we're going to copy it, convert it into binary, and then map it out. As you can see here, there's a 1 for every single bone except for the large item joint. Very easy. So for Brian, we're going to want to do mostly the same thing. First, we have to identify what are withheld parts and what are standard parts. Withheld parts are parts that are called in when needed. So they usually are parts that will have hidden meshes attached to them or something that's required for a move later on. For Brian, we technically have 2 withheld parts. I added in 2 potential magic joints. So those will always remain 0, but everything else will be 1. First, we need to update the animations. If you remember, when we imported this, the rig got all jumbled and messed up. Well, the animations are all attached to the old rig. So what we're going to want to do is a temporary step. We want to trick the editor into thinking our new rig is like the old rig. So every single bone we added, we need to put a 0 in place. It has to match the original rig. And remember, the staff used to be the old item joint, so just leave it in place. But I added in this potential withheld part. I added in these caped and hair parts. I added in the item joint and this part. So this converted value is what we'll go here first. Update, click OK. Then we want to come over to the side panel here and we want to export all animations. Just export them all. Click on it, pick a spot, export them. And this will take some time. What this is going to do is take all 180 or so animations and put them in the correct bone structure under the correct bone. So in layman's terms, it's going to take the head, which was part 8 originally, and since we updated this flag, when it exports it, it's like, well, step down until I find the right value. So for here, it's going to go in and just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, because it's part 8, so it's 9. Then it's going to come in here, and it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ah, this is where this animation track goes. It's going to drop it into this place. So we're tricking it into exporting the animations in the right spot. Now, once we've done that, we're going to want to go in. Let's give it a second. Once we finished exporting everything, what we're going to want to do is now update the withheld bit flag to the final proper bit flag. As stated before, with Mario, it was so straight ones down the line. For Brian, we have 2 true withheld parts, being part 8 here and being part 13. So our final bit flag will be 1s all the way down, except for part 8, part 13, and large item joint. So when we convert that into binary, we end up with this. When we run it through our hex converter, we end up with this. So when we go into our editor, we're going to put that there, update it, and be done. Boom. Then, after all that is done, we're going to want to go here and import all animations from the folder we just dropped them into. Then we need to just wait for it to do that. The animations have imported. We're going to want to start updating the withheld parts table. So we go in here again. You look down here, you see withheld parts. When we click on this, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, this is good. 0, 1, and 2, they are expected. We don't need to worry anything about those. 3 is our large item joint. If you look back way, we look at Mario's rig. Mario's large item joint was on 18. If we go here, we'll see 1C and part number 4, the parent part number 4. This is an important thing to remember. The part values is always +4 the real part. So we're going to have to start thinking in hex. All right, what is 18 plus 4? 18, 1, 2, 3, 4. See that? Part 1C. That's important to remember. So if we're doing the large item joint, we come down. For Brian, what does that mean? Large item joint. Okay. That means, I'm going to go find one of my bigger charts. Right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Part 22. So that means instead of having 1C, we need 22. So if we go back to our editor here, this now becomes a 22. And we don't worry about the unknown values. What about part 4 and 5? Well, remember how we added those withheld parts? That's what these are. We need to update these to match. Same situation. Let's go to our first withheld part. It's part 8. Well, what does that mean? Part 8. Add 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now that is part C. So we go in here and we're going to change this to C. Then we need to update its parent. Well, that has to do with our rig. If we go back to the Brian rig, we look here. Here's the part C. Well, it's just the one right above it. It's not the staff, it's the one above it. So, I'm sorry, not staff, the item joint. If we go back here and we look, this is the withheld part, so it's not this one, it's the hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, A. So that means we need to put 0A here. And let's go down here. Same situation. This is the other withheld part because it does do it in order. That withheld part is part 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 17. And then its parent part, let's take a look at the rig. This one is actually attached to the staff, if you noticed. No, the parent part there was 17, this would be 16. And the values, just for completion's sake, we're going to want to set the unknown to 1 and unknown to 0. So if we go back here, make sure that this is set to 1, 00001, and 00001. And we set that, we're done. Perfect. What this has done so far is it has taken the rig, it's added a new rig, it's added a new withheld parts, it has fixed, I'm going to say quote, fixed animations. Now we need to fix the hurt boxes, the bounding boxes, and we need to fix other parts of the character main file. So let's do that. Export the main file from here. Just click Export Main File, pick a folder, drop it in. We're going to do this. All right. Then you're also going to want to parse the display lists. This is important because the display list is going to help us find things. All right, we've done that. Let's go into the hex file. So what we are going to want to do is import our hex file. Here's our bin. Grab the main, drop it in here. Notice how this looks. Not helpful. Click View, byte group size, set it to 4. Look at this. 0480C placements. Important to know. Now, let's load up our display file. If we click on this, take a look at it, this right here is telling us information. Our character offset, our character file. It's going to tell us a bunch of information. A lot of stuff we don't need, but a lot of stuff we will. Here is our withheld parts table. As you can see, it displays the changes we added. Easy. What we care about, though, is this section here. Unknown value data. The first 3 don't matter. We want to modify this section. This section right here has to do with your shield pose. Given that we're going to be importing an animated shield pose, we're not going to worry about it adjusting it here. The editor will fix that for us. This right here has to do with fixing sockets and parts. So let's take a look at our guide. We have a little breakdown of it. you'll see the information again. As you see, top is irrelevant. The next section, we are going to be dealing with damage types. We're going to be looking for the head and the wrists, and then sockets. So let's take a look at it. If we compare our structure again, because this is most of the process, we can see, for example, let's go to this right here, 2A4. If we look at our editor, let's go down to 2A, so slide down here, 2A4. There's a B6. We're in the wrong spot. Let's take a look again, shall we? Make sure we're 100% accurate. These are not what we're looking at. Remember, it's this side. So let's go find 73.4. Go here, go down, 73.4. There's a C here. That matches this. And we're going to change it. So what is this part? Head bone part, +4. Can we verify that? Let's see here. Mario's head bone. They said C, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, head part. All right. Well, what does that mean? Where's our head part? Our head part has moved up 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. That means it needs to be. Oh, we got to add 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That means it needs to be a E, not a C. I made a note of it. Let's do one more. Let's take a look at this shin bone here. They say it's part 19. Part 19. Let's go up here, part 19. 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at that. It's the leg mesh. It's on this socket. So if we come down here, find the leg mesh. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1F. We're going to want to convert that into 1F. So I've already gone through and started making those changes. It's the same situation for each of these individual parts. You find it on Mario. For example, the right leg socket was on 17. So we go to 17. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. Probably need to adjust some of the words. It's fine. Find the leg socket. Go there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. Then, from there, you go down to the converse. Add 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1D. Come down here. 17 to 1D. And repeat this process. Even with the item joint. Notice here, we moved it, remember? The item joint was originally on 11. 1, 2, 3, 4. See? Right here, 11. I moved it up. We took that item joint and we put it on the other hand. So now it's on B. So when we come down here, we need to update that. Make sure you follow this step. And you do this in the whole file. So let's go in and start making some changes, shall we? If we come down here and we look at our editor, it's pretty simple. All we're going to want to do is find the part. So 734, it's C here. We just have to type it. Now it's E. If we go to 738, this 14. Now state it. Wait, I went up too far. This F here is now 14. This 14 is now 1A. This 19 is 1F. This 9 becomes the same because it didn't change. Don't worry about the rest. Let's go down to 78C. 78C right here. This 17 becomes 1D. This 12 becomes 118. This is 12. The 7 is the same. And we don't need to worry about the others. 1C becomes 22. And 11 becomes B. All right. So that is going through the different tables that we need to update. Next, we're going to want to update head part. If you see right here, this head part here is supposed to be at 198. Let's go to 198. Right here, right here. 0C. That needs to get updated. If you notice, we've already calculated what that's supposed to be. It's supposed to be E. So 0E. All right, that's now up to date. This right here is controlling dynamic textures. If you have more dynamic textures, such as Link's model, then you're going to want to change as many as you need. Mario has one, and if we want to add one, then we have to get into pointer manipulation stuff. I added stuff in the guide. You can follow that if you need to. For Brian, we do not need it, so I'm not going to make those changes. The last thing we need to do for hex editing is updating the hurt boxes. Now, let's go back to our display file. If you look here, we're looking for the offset, and then we're going to add 104 to it. Our offset is 490, and then we add 104 to it, so it's going to become 594. Right? I mean, it was easy. It is hex. Remember this. This is hex addition. Luckily, it just worked out. So let's go to 594 in our file. If we come down here, 594. Right here, 594. Notice the 6. This is now defining the hurt boxes. When someone punches and you get hurt. It's a product of 9 different words. The first 3 is going to be the bone, the damage animation, and if it's grabbable, followed by the offset and its size. So when you get to modifying the boxes to match your rig's new bone length and structure, this is where you're going to want to make those changes. I'm not covering that right now because that takes a lot more time than what I want to do. But what I will do is count them out. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Look at that. 6, and then there's a C. So now you're starting to see a lot of repetition in values. So if we copy out all of those and put them out, we will end up with something like this. You have your bone and your box and some data, and it repeats. What is this F? Some characters have hips, such as Link or Fox, which means this would be their hip bone. Some characters don't have those parts, so they don't need hurt boxes. That is essentially what this is. If you want to repurpose your hurt boxes, you can do that. But again, most characters follow the same structure, being head, arms, hands, feet, body. We need to repeat the same process again. We want to go to the chest, which was 6. We want to go down 4, which is 2, Brian is in the same position. And then when we go back up, add 4, it's there. Head, we saw it was C, goes to E. The upper arm mesh was E, and now it became 13. Just same process. Find it on the Mario rig, find it in the new location on the new rig, add 4, make the updates. And then once that is done, we just want to do what we did with the last time. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change this 6 to nothing. I'm going to go down to the C and that now becomes an E. I'm going to go down to the next one, this E here, it becomes 13 and so forth. Once we've made all these modifications, we're going to want to save the file. So we say File, Save. When we go to our folder, HXD will make a backup of the original and have our file. I'm going to use the one that I created earlier because it has all of these changes already in it. That is the last we need of hex editing. Once we've done that, we're going to go back into our editor. We cannot import that file here, so we have to write our ROM. So you click Write ROM, you save it to your location. In our case, we're going to save it here. And then you have to exit out of this part. And you load the editor. We're going to now go into game configuration. This is how we import or inject files. We're going to need this when we're adding to Remix. We click choose our file. You want to choose the one that you've been modifying so far. And in here, we're going to go hunt down the file that we need. We're going to come in and we're going to go down to the Mario main character file. So we've got to find it. It's in here somewhere usually. Mario main character. Once you've done that, we're going to inject a file. You're going to find the one that you were modifying, and you're going to inject that. And then you just overwrite your ROM. Nice and easy. Let's go back to our animation editor. Let's open that ROM that we were just modifying. All right. Now that we've done all of that, the rig should be adjusted and ready. I'm not going to worry about animation or the shield pose animation today. We'll cover that in a bit. You will have to modify it. This ROM we just made, I want to make a special note. I'm going to stress this. This ROM we just made is a base ROM. You do not want to import your character and start overriding this ROM. Remember, when you import characters, it makes the file bigger and bigger and bigger. You want to try and keep your file sizes as small as possible. So if you ever want to modify your rig or add to your rig, or say for example I want to give Brian like 50 rocks on different body parts. I want to reuse my old rig structure, but I want to add all these new models. It's best to go back to this ROM and then do the import than just to import over one that already has Brian in it. But let's import Brian. We're going to go import and add textures. We're going to scroll down to where our model is. Pick your texture file. The texture file here contains all the textures that you're expecting to have on your character. And since we're going to be looking at it real quick, we might as well go over it real quick. You also have your special textures file. One thing I want to note is that if you look here, I have a chest texture, I have a skull eye texture, I have a faded texture, and I have a wisp texture. And then in my special textures, I include a wisp frame. What is this? When we look at Brian, This is what I expect to see the entire time we're fighting. But at times, withheld parts will be used. You may use a different hand, for example. I have a flat hand here. He may use a chest in one of his animations. These will all be exported separately at different times and imported in different ways. But one easy way to keep your file size down is to put all the textures you know you're going to need, because you're going to be re-importing on that base ROM anyway. If you add a new special part, might as well import all the textures at once. Just take all this, import them all at once in one file, which is what we're doing here. Import all of your textures at once, and then I'm going to import my model, which is this one right here, and then import all of my special textures at once, as so. Yeah, might as well recalculate. And now we have Brian here. This should be a full rig. Let's import the low and the skeleton. Now, since we've already imported him with textures, now we just need to import if already added. We've already added the textures. So I can click on this and it generates this file, so I just open it. Let's go down to our low res Brian model. Click that. You're going to need to redo the special textures because it helps it map. Yeah, recalculate, why not? All right, and then finally, let's do the skeleton. Again, import if already added. Just pick that file, and then skeleton. Okay. I'm not going to cover withheld parts at this time. We'll make that a separate video. But for now, let's test our ROM. Now, if everything went smoothly, this should work with no difficulty. So here's an example of the ROM with all of our adjustments and parts made. If we go in here and we go to training mode, let's go up to Brian. Look at that. There's our boy. Remember how I mentioned the head would get messed up? Well, this is unfortunately part of it because of the head moved. But if we go inside the ROM here, now we have Brian. Notice how not all of them fail, just some of them. I can't do up B. Up B is attached to special parts. And I can't shield pose either. But if you noticed, he is now in place. And he is working. Actually, let's hit him. I'm going to pick Jigglypuff here, put that there. Fire. Look at that. And can I grab? Nope, it's always a shield. Shield pose will crash. Actually, let's go back one more time. Grab works too. So that right there is fixing the rig. Next time, we're going to talk about shield poses and getting that working and onto the base ROM. Base ROM again being the ROM without any model imported over it. And making sure that everything is ready for importing into Remix. Thank you.